Hey, it's Paul McFadden here, and welcome to the Property Success Podcast. And today's guest is David Liddell. And I'm looking forward to get into his story, because his story is one of someone who's got started in the property journey and has just been tenacious with his approach, and the results that he's been having for the last number of years is just amazing. Going full-time in property, and every time I see him inside the group, he's dropping little messages talking about what deals he's working on. He's utilising a number of different strategies as well, and he's doing this with his partner, which is amazing, because I love that when partners do this together. And it's just been great to see someone go through this whole journey. And this is the point for me in this podcast, is I want to inspire more and more people by talking to others with their own story, to hear about their backgrounds, but more importantly, the journey that they're going through, talking about the deals they're working on, because I know that when you hear David's story, you're going to be inspired. So first and foremost, welcome, David.
Hi Paul, how you doing?
Oh, good. So let's get stuck in a little bit. And how I like to start these conversations is taking it back to the David before property. So give me your background from, I guess, growing up a little bit, where you went to for work and so forth, and then how you led your way into property.
Yeah, so tracking right back, from primary school, I probably wasn't the best behaved person in primary school, and through my younger childhood, and then into first and second year, I really just didn't care about much school-wise. And then a couple of things happened, and I decided to kind of really knuckle down. And then I managed to do not too bad. Then I stayed on fifth year at school, got quite decent grades in a few subjects. And then I was due to go to college, actually. And then about a week before I was due to go to college, my mum phoned up university and asked, is there any spaces for him? So then I ended up at uni about 3 days after I turned 17. So I ended up there a lot earlier just because there was space and that. So I done mechanical engineering, and basically then was in a job doing mechanical engineering up in Aberdeen. I used to live in Ellen, in a job doing mechanical, specifically hydraulic engineering, for the best part of 10 years, from being 21 through to about 30. Yeah.
So that was your whole background there. And then when did you transition from that? Was that around about a time where you had an interest in property and that you started looking at that, or was there a different path before that happened?
So there was always kind of a good interest in property. I always had it in my mind. My dad had properties that he rented out over the years. My stepfather, he was an architect as well. I was on building sites and all that stuff with him, and developments with him, went from a very young age. So it was always in my mind. Basically, I didn't even, when I was still living at home with my mum, I decided that I was going to basically buy a rental property. So that was probably the best part 7-8 years ago now. And because in Ellen, where I was, I didn't know, I'd really have any education around property or whatever, but I just knew that I could get the same rental for a property in Peterhead as I could almost in Ellen, but the properties were half the price there. So for me, it made complete sense. And so I actually used a first-time buyer mortgage to get this property, and then ended up flipping it onto a buy-to-let mortgage. But I managed to secure that property at a big discount, just by luck, without really knowing what a terminology BMV meant at the time. We secured that at, I think it was over £20,000 discount on that property. And yeah, basically 3 months after I got that, I got a job in Glasgow and moved down to Glasgow. And every weekend I spent driving back up to Peterhead trying to refurbish it myself. And it just took 3 months. I was in Glasgow for 3 months before I actually had a weekend night out in Glasgow, because I was driving up to Peterhead every weekend with this wee van that I had, trying to do the refurb on it all myself. Obviously as cheap as possible at the time. Not thinking about leveraging others to do it.
But that's quite exciting, isn't it? I think most people, when they start their property journey, they have this mindset of having to do things themselves to keep the cost down. And that was my own story. And my thoughts about it now. You should leverage, use other people that know how to do all of that stuff. But at the beginning of someone's journey, when they don't know the power of leverage, don't know about utilising their power team, they tend to do it all themselves. And I've been guilty of that. But it's actually exciting when you reflect back and look at that whole process. So as much as that, you know, going back and forth from Glasgow to Aberdeen in that van to go and do the work and everything else, you know, you must look back and go, that's quite exciting about that whole process that you've gone through and did your first flip.
Yeah, it was really good. So you know, we got it complete. It was just before Christmas. We got it complete the week before. Got a tenant in it, and it rented with the same guy for 3-4 years. It was until the guy that owned the property upstairs came and chapped at my mum's door because it was still registered there or whatever, and he was looking for the owner of the property downstairs, and obviously she reached out to me and we got chatting. He just wanted to move there because his son lived above, and I ended up in the situation where I had a motivated buyer for the property.
Which is always
so
a good
it's
thing.
the flip side of, you know, kind of a seller, you know, that we're normally dealing with. So yeah, and he basically offered me, you know, a price that I couldn't resist for the property, and you know, and that was good. So I got great cash flow for 3 years from the property, and then got, you know, a great profit at the other end from this one that I kind of just done on the fly, you know, without really thinking too much about it. So yeah.
Good stuff. And then you came to Glasgow.
Yeah.
So during this whole process, so talk about your journey there, and then where it got you to take that step to get into property, I guess.
Absolutely.
More in the sense of making it your main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what happened for me was, you know, one of my big goals was always to move and travel the world and potentially go to Australia. So an opportunity came along where basically I basically had a job confirmed over in Australia where it was going to kind of be all expenses paid, going out there to work as still an engineer, obviously, and they were going to pay for my partner Samantha as well. So it was all like the dreams come true. That was at the tail end of 2019. So things were just in motion. Start of 2020, and obviously then, you know, kind of COVID hit, and you couldn't go to Australia for years essentially. So yeah, that got completely killed. It was always kind of my dream to go there because I'll just love extreme sports, you know, water skiing, motocross, all these kind of things. So it's like the perfect location for it. So that's why I wanted to move there. However, you know, obviously time went by and, you know, went through COVID and, you know, kind of started to really start working on myself. And I think a pivoting point for me was I read this one book, and I've actually reread it in the last month. It was The Miracle Morning, and it just completely changed my mindset about life and what I was doing, how I was getting up in the morning, and started learning a bit. And then I just started learning a bit about property, and then thought, right, you know, I was due the money coming in from that flat in Peterhead, which got delayed also by COVID. So it was kind of a bit waiting in limbo for that. That was going to tie in well for me, having some cash as well to go to Australia. But I thought, you know, well, I'm obviously not going to Australia now. I'll maybe just get a couple of 50 grand flats in Glasgow, you know, and rent them out. I could have probably got 2 at the time, and that would mean me sorted, you know, a couple of rental properties. But yeah, I decided to not do that and looked into a bit about education and stuff, and that's how I came across yourself. Yeah.
And what was your first exposure? Was it a Jumpstart event?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I was looking at some stuff online, just doing my own bit of reading and that, and then you know, was looking at other things, and I was like, you know, everything was down south, so I just Googled Scottish property education, and yourself popped up, obviously, and then I thought that was just me sold, and Sean phoned me, and I just went, right, that's for me. I'm doing this because I knew I just wanted to. Just a bit of education, you know, I could have done a lot more than probably what I was originally planning, and thought that I could maybe make much more and more of a business out of it.
Yeah, so your mindset prior to Protege was, I'll get a couple of properties in Glasgow, 50 grand each, good rental properties, making some money in there. That was kind of your mindset prior to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, I was just astonished by you could get properties for 50k, you know, when I lived up in Aberdeen, when maybe now it's a slightly different landscape, but you know, you'd never see a property at £50,000 back then, you know, in Aberdeen or Ellen where I stayed. So it was just like, wow, I can't believe you could even get a property for that price, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So coming along to Prodigy, I guess the whole motivation there was to do things right, to get the education side of things, as you mentioned there. What was your experience over the 5 days?
Yeah. So yeah, back when I done it there, it was actually the 3-day one, and then it was, my mind was blown. I came home and my partner was like, "What's happened to you?" I was like this, like, all excited little boy again, you know, and I had all these mad ideas in my head of what I was going to do. So, it was a really great experience. Just opened up my mind to what was possible, and what potential there was in property. And you know, I would have never known any of that if, you know, I hadn't went on the courses and all these different strategies that I learned, and you know, I've tapped into, you know, a good half a dozen of them at least, you know, over the course of the last 3 years or so. Yeah.
So you've gone through Prodigy. You did it when it was only 3 days. Now it's 5. But when you did do it, was it around about a time where everything was going on in the world with COVID and everything else and restrictions and challenges there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was November 2020 I done it. Yeah. So it was kind of, things were still in a bit of limbo, and so, but yeah, coming out of Prodigy, you know, one of the things at Prodigy where you do a call to somebody else in the room and do a bit of negotiation. So the person that I'd called, I hadn't actually had a chance to chat to at any point over the course of the 3 days. This was the first time I spoke to them. It was like the last hour of the day of the last day. So then I got chatting to him. Turned out he was in Bothwell. I was in Coatbridge at the time, and we just said, "Oh, let's meet up." And then within about three weeks or so of Prodigy, we put an offer in this property in Coatbridge and managed to secure the deal, which was pretty quick coming out the gates, obviously.
So it was JV together?
Yeah, so we decided to team up, JV with that. Me being in Glasgow and not really knowing anybody as well, Prodigy has been great for meeting a lot of new friends and business partners, and obviously in this case a business partner as well and friend. And he had trades background. You know, if this was up in my hometown, I would have been able to find trades, no problem, you know, friends, family, whatever. But being down here, didn't really know anyone, so it kind of felt like it was going to work well between us. And he, you know, got all his contacts for trades and that in, and we just decided to JV on this one, and it was great. So
walk us through that deal then. So you got this, was it a flip?
Yeah, it was a flip. So it was on market. It was literally a mile from my house in Coatbridge. We secured it at £38,000. So below the stamp duty threshold. We just bought it cash at the time. And we then decided to convert it into a 2-bedroom. So it had like a big pantry area and then a massive kitchen for the size of the property. It was far too big. So we just basically, you know, just done a wee bit of reconfiguration. The layout wasn't anything, you know, too crazy. So we converted it into a 2-bedroomed flat, and we spent in the region of £40,000 on the refurb there. We bought it at 38,000, and it actually got listed for sale, and it sold for 127,500, and then the sale actually fell through. We then got it staged and then relisted it again on Boxing Day, and then got $7,500 more, and it sold at 132,500. So by the time we encumbered all costs and the refurb, you know, we were just shy of £50,000 profit on that one, on the first deal, which was just astonishing. And my mind was blown. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I love that, because this is what I love about the whole buy and flip strategy, is where you can see the value that can be added. And one of the things I always talk about is if you can convert a property to add an extra bedroom or create more livable space, then it's going to force the valuation up. So it's good that you spotted that. It's one of the things we always talk about at Prodigy, is where to spot the gems, and that being your first flip, coming straight out of Prodigy within a few weeks and going through that whole process. And even though it fell through, it must have felt at the time when it fell through, oh my God, like that's so frustrating and annoying. But of course, getting a better offer after staging it, you know, putting you know, dressing it up with the furniture and stuff, can always help a little bit more in the sense of getting that extra which you did. So that's amazing. Your first flip as a joint venture, making, over 50 grand, which is just amazing. I love it. So that must have got you well fired up.
Yeah.
So walk me through the next process, because I know you've been involved in a number of strategies, and maybe talk about, that transition from quitting your job and going full-time into property. What was the kicker for that to happen? And then we can get into some of the other deals.
Yeah. So back in April last year, I slowly actually phased out my work. I was working as an engineering contractor, so I kind of phased it down to a couple of days a week, and then fully kind of basically finished up in April last year. And the funny thing about that was, like, literally the week before I finished, the people that I had the job for in Australia sent me an email asking me if I was still interested. So I was like, oh no, what am I doing? And my mind was going, no, do I do this? Do I do this? But I thought, I'm loving what I'm doing at the moment. I'm sticking by this. I've put a lot of hard work into this over the last maybe year and a half or so. So decided just to stick with it here in Scotland, and we'll get to Australia soon at some point. But yeah, I mean, really, for me, I felt like I always just wanted to be in business. From throughout university, I had a business. I was working as a handyman. I think I had like 3 jobs at the time. I was working as a waiter. I was working for my uncle. I was doing handyman jobs on the side. I was just always trying to make more money, I think when I was at uni doing all these things, I actually earned more then when I actually left and got my first job. But yeah, the flipping point, to track back for me to just go full time is, we had some money landing from deals completing, and it just felt the timing was right, and I was right, okay, I've got all this lump sum of money. I can then just use that to cash flow for a while. I can then just obviously concentrating on, getting cash flow in from whether it be deal sourcing, or we got involved in doing some assisted sales as well, which helped a lot. And we had, another business as well going at the time, which kind of was a bit of a distraction, but it's easy to get involved in that when you think you've got all this time in the world. Now you're not tied down to one employer.
Yeah. One of the things I love about you, David, getting to know you over the years, is that anytime you're at any of the events, you're always asking questions. You've never been afraid to ask questions. Yeah. And do you know how there's many people out there who have got questions, but they never ask? It's the fear of, it's a stupid, simple thing. Oh, I don't want to say something because it might be a stupid question or whatever. But that's never entered in your mind. It's always like, I'm just going to ask it.
Yeah.
And you ask great questions. Do you know that way? It's one of those. No, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it is a basic question, like anyone. But I think you ask enough questions, and it's almost like you're digging deep into, how can I work on this? How's that going to? And do you think that might be the mechanical engineer in you that's trying to engineer the process, and it's getting you to understand how things work?
Yeah.
So is that kind of always been your thought process?
Aye, the mechanical engineer is probably sometimes a strong point and sometimes the biggest weakness, wanting to work out how everything's done, and sometimes you just need to go, right, this is pretty simple, like you just need to take actions as opposed to, I could sit behind the screen on the computer and look at a spreadsheet all day if I wanted to, but it's not gonna make me any money, But yeah, I mean, asking questions, I was just, when a lot of the time, and people offer out for questions to be asked, and then there's a silence, and I think you always need, especially if you're paying for a service like onto Protege or onto the Zoom calls every week, you need to be going in there with questions ready to ask, because at the end of the day, I want to get the most worth out of the money that I've invested in the courses, asking the questions, getting things answered as quickly as possible, and getting the advice. That one bit of advice might just push you on to do the next thing, or do the deal and have confidence in it when there was maybe a bit of uncertainty.
Yeah, do you know what I love about not only the questions that you ask, you implement, and you implement fast as well, which I love, because sometimes it's this whole paralysis thing where you get the answer, and then with the whole engineer's mind, and that must have been a little bit of a battle with you, because if you've got that background, and it's one of those ones where, I went to the Dan Peña's, Castle seminar, the $50 billion man, and the first thing he said when we're all surrounded by him at the beginning of our 8 days with him. He just turns around and says, "Where's all my engineers at?" And most people put their hands up. And he's like, the engineers, the ones that want to see how everything works before they do anything, before they take any action. And many hands went up, my hand included. And he just turned around and says, "That's going to be your biggest downfall. That's going to be your biggest failure." And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Isn't that a good thing to see how things work? And he turns around and says that that's what leads to paralysis for so many people, where we're overthinking. And when you become the overthinker, you're never able to take that next step and take that action, because you're looking at every permutation that could possibly happen. And sometimes you get so caught up in your own mind. And like you said there with spreadsheets, you're just looking at numbers, looking at things, changing stuff. You feel like you're doing work, but you're not. So I guess from your background, being an engineer, there must have been a transitional point that you've started to think, well, this is maybe holding me back. It's got its strong points, but at the same time, I need to think beyond that, take more action and get the results.
Absolutely. I mean, it still holds me back to this day. I know it. I mean, there probably could have been double the amount of deals done if I'd just not thought about them so much and just, took the next action to make the phone call, to make the offer, to act quickly, as opposed to sitting on it for a week, because as an engineer, you're always looking at how something doesn't work and looking for the way to make it fail, as opposed to just going, I'm happy with that. Let's go for it. It's sometimes what you have to do in property. If the numbers work initially and you've done them right, then you could sit them and tweak them till your heart's content. It's not going to change anything. You need to just go on to phone the client, make the offer, and get things moving. Over even recently, it's still happens. I still just get caught up in things, the engineer's mindset and trying to work everything out when, and then, if it's coming to like bridging finance or something, like I'm trying to work out where's all the cost and this, that, and the next thing, where some people would just like literally look at 4 or 5 numbers and then be happy with it. And I'm like, right, I need to know every single minute detail. But yeah, really, that's been one of my biggest challenges. One of the things I'm focusing on at the moment, like development wise, is just like, just more taking action and trying to strip away that old, mindset that's been rooted into me. And I think there was a bit of like, I don't know, I don't think I'd ever felt this before until just recently. I realised there was maybe a bit of an ego in me, like an engineering ego, like, oh, well, if I can do that and design this and, do all these things, then surely this property stuff is easy, I can work out the numbers like in my sleep, but this is easy. But the numbers are very important, but taking that action to do the deal and building up the courage to phone somebody that you might not want to phone or whatever it may be, or phone the investor to ask for money, phone the client to put in an offer that they might like hang up on you because it's too low. Having that courage to take that is much more important almost than doing the numbers, because you could have the numbers and they could work, but if you don't take that action, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Am I right in saying that recently you had a call to make and you were reluctant to do it, or you were kind of not sure with a motivated seller? Is that right?
Yeah.
And then you reached out.
Just the other week, it's nothing's set in stone now, but it's more just the point of what we've just been talking about is I had a great day, and then I sat there at the night. It was about 7:00 or something. I was like, I forgot that I hadn't phoned this seller, so I went to him. I said, "Oh, it's too late." I said I would phone him earlier on today. I've not done it. Oh, I'll just do it tomorrow now. And I'd had a great day as well. But then all this, and I just like held up the mirror and realised something. And I was like, what am I doing? Just phone the guy. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Phoned him, and it turned out to be this, somebody that's in a difficult situation. And we, so he's like, right, I'm at the property tomorrow morning coming over from, he lives away, not in the UK. So he says, I'm over here, meet me at the property tomorrow morning. And yeah, I got there, and it is the worst condition property I've ever been in. So, and that just made me realise like how many opportunities I've missed out on probably from just not taking that small action. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be, we've got the offer in that, just a few days ago there, because that was just at the tail end of last week this happened. And, it'll be great. We'll be following the assisted sales strategy to help them out. And really, the property, I don't want to go into too much detail, but like, he's a hoarder, and it's got stuff collected up to the ceiling with stuff. There's one passageway through the property into each room, and all sorts of rats and everything living in it. So
yeah, we love those ones, right? Because the ones that are messy and like put everyone off, then it's perfect for us, isn't it? We can go in and transform it. Now tell me about this, because you mentioned assisted sale. You've done a few assisted sales. So walk me through, the first one that you done, and maybe some numbers around those, and it'd be good to hear that. So
the first assisted sales, I actually kind of done two basically right at the same time, which one was really the first? I think I got one of them agreed before the other, but then ended up starting the refurb on the one that was agreed the second before, that, if that makes sense. Basically in both them situations, there was a property in Hamilton. We'll start with that. It was a 3-bed detached property, and the seller there had a really rough situation throughout COVID, with a tenant not paying, making all sorts of allegations, wrecked the house. He will list some of the things that he'd done, just is quite interesting. He sawed off the banister, he smashed every single window, he cut all the electrical cables, so it needed a full rewire. He snipped the pipes on the boiler, and a host of other things, ripped up flooring and everything. So the place was a complete wreck, and they'd been through a terrible time, lost a load of money, had to fork out money on solicitors and that. So we came in and started, helping out by, basically we came in to assisted sale agreement and done a lot of creative things around there to help them. We offered them a lot more than what they would have got to sell that property. The only route would have been probably auction. It was unmortgageable, had no kitchen or anything like that in it. So we really offered them a solution there that they were absolutely delighted with, and because they'd owned the property for so long, they got to see the process of the refurbishment and the end product as well, which I think, in most cases with assisted sales, they always love to see that. When basically we got that lead through from doing some online marketing and stuff. So within probably a few weeks of getting the lead, making the offer, and had the paperwork signed, and basically as soon as that document's signed, you can get in there and start the refurb, which is great. You don't have to wait for any sort of conveyancing. The refurb there was full refurb. This 3-bed detached house was £45,000, It had its challenges as well, with basically on the closing date was the Friday. On the Saturday morning, I was actually moving house. It was an icy day like today. There was a load of black ice at the end of last year, just run up to Christmas, and I crashed my car in the black ice in the morning.
Oh, no.
And then I was then in the process of moving house that day too, so I delayed the removals van. And then I was at the storage unit after I crashed the car and just got rid of it to the garage. And then I got a phone call from the estate agent. Somebody had looked in the window of the house, and the pipes had burst on. Basically, it was the last day. It was actually cold and flooded the whole property that we'd just refurbished and just sold as well. But yeah, we managed to solve that very quickly over the Christmas period. Me and the contractor went around and started mopping it up, got dehumidifiers in and all sorts. It was really, really tested the mindset and the patience and, the ability to deal with challenges like that. But yeah, the property went back on the market because the seller pulled out because of what happened. We got everything fixed. It looked like perfect, back to the way it was before. And we still managed to sell that property on and made £32,000 profit on the assisted sale after putting about the £45,000 into it. So it gave us, that's a great return on the money. And obviously it was in a lot shorter space of time than it would have been if it was a flip.
Yeah, so that's like a 60% cash on cash return, which absolutely is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Love it. And you were doing 2 assisted sales around about the same time?
Yeah, at the same time. So then there was one in Partick. It was a big 3-bed duplex penthouse, essentially, just in Partick in Glasgow. Basically we just agreed similar with the seller there. The property was just run down. It wasn't a really difficult situation like the other one, but we provided him a solution that he was happy with and an offer that I believe he wouldn't got on the market because of the condition of the property. So it was a £500,000 penthouse, but we only had to put £30,000 into that deal on the refurb to refurbish it, and And all we done was basically we redone bathrooms, we redone flooring, we painted the place. We didn't do the kitchen on this because it was actually all right. And just done what was needed to do to get that end value we were looking for of 475,000. Now we got the home report done at 485, so it came in 10 grand more than what we thought, and it sold it at 485 basically. It was a bit of a challenging sale. It took a bit of time, just a very niche property at the end of last year as well, with interest rates going crazy and everybody getting scared. So but yeah, we put £30,000 into that and we got £20,000 back, so it was very similar cash on cash return to the other one as well, which is great. And again, we didn't have to go through any conveyancing process, no purchasing, and it was a very quick deal, 6 months, and it was done.
This is why I love the strategy, assisted sales. It opens up a whole different game to approach the market and to be more competitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also to provide solutions to sellers.
Yeah.
And I think the more that people become aware of that strategy, and it's a strategy that we really focus in on and teach at Protege, because it can help people get started with a lot less cash in terms of acquisition cost, but more importantly, the cash on cash return is significantly higher and in a very shorter period of time than buying, renovating, putting on the market and selling. So it's amazing. You've been implementing that. It's a strategy that it's one of your go-tos, which I love.
Yeah.
But as of late, you've started to get involved in some bigger projects. Now, what I love about this as well, you, David, is that your game, you're motivated to look at bigger things. You don't let things put you off, right? Yeah. And you'll send me some opportunities to look at, and you're talking about, I'm going to get involved in this here, and I hear you on the Zoom calls when you're talking about, this potential land deal, or this potential, commercial conversion, or this potential apart hotel, all of this here. So it's like, not only you're doing the bread and butter stuff from your flips, from your deal trades, because I know you source and sell properties on to help others build their own portfolio, and your assisted sales. You're now starting to look at the bigger projects too. So maybe walk me through. And I know some of them you're in the process of working, so you might not be able to go into the full details, but at least can I give us a bit of a understanding of the things that you're working on. But before we get there, you've only been really following your property journey for less than 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just over 3 years since.
Or just
over 3 years by like last month. It was 3 years since I done Protege. Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal. I mean, just to put things into perspective before you go and talk about those deals, it took me 5 years. It took me 5 years to replace my income and go full time in property. So I did it the slow way, building a portfolio. And look at you, after like a year and a half to 2 years in your property journey, you went full time, and it's just been growing from strength to strength. So talk about some of these deals that you're working on.
Yeah, so we've always had that interest in serviced accommodation. We've got one in Coatbridge now. It's been running for just over a year, and it's performed great. 80% occupancy. It gave us £1,000 net a month previously. Now we manage it ourselves with our own management company, and and our own cleaning company as well, which my partner runs. So it probably nets double that now that we've took all the cost in house, netting about £2,000 a month. We're buying another serviced accommodation in North Lanarkshire as well, which is very similar property. So I just seen the potential in serviced accommodation, and over the course of the last 6 months or so, probably I've just been around people, been on certain calls and seen some other opportunities of how people are getting around certain licensing laws and stuff in Scotland at the moment, with the short-term lets licensing laws, and how they're getting around that by looking at properties that are already commercial, already geared for holiday lets, essentially, whether it's an old commercial building, or it was maybe once a hotel or whatever, a B&B, and just repurposing that for the short-term let market, because not many people want to go and get bed and breakfast in a hotel, B&B anymore. So we are looking at deals like this in the pipeline. We have a couple secured. I really don't want to speak too much about things until the deal's over the line. But I'm really keen at I just think that it's the same amount of tasks that you need to do one big project as you would do a resident. It's one set of conveyancing, one set of finance application, one set of managing a refurb. So, if you can, it's just a bigger job. So the way I look at it is, I'm just wanting to take the next level up, looking at these ones where we're converting, potentially an old commercial building into, half a dozen apartments, and that's basically like having, a small hotel, and as opposed to taking a residential off the market and making it into a holiday let, and it's just all in one place. It can be managed easier. It can be, run easier as well, and obviously you can, you're exempt from these laws. So what I'd like to. I've just lost what I was going to say.
Well, talking about it's all good because you're talking about the deals you're working on just now, and the whole thing. It could be like you've got this one commercial, you're going to be converting it into 6 apartments as such. In the one place, you've got your own management agency, you've got your own cleaning company, and I know you do that with your partner Samantha, and you guys working together, you're going to save a lot of money on that process, which drives up your net income. So from that point of view, when this comes to fruition, because I know myself, we've got the similar down at South, myself and my business partner there, and we've got, and it used to just be an old B&B, and we went in and converted it into 8 apartments, and they rent out incredibly well. Not only does it rent out to the short-term holiday let, but it also rents out to the contractor market too. And off the back of that, your occupancy rate is so much higher, and the money can be made as crazy. So if you've remembered your train of thought, great. If not, I've got another question for you.
Okay, no, absolutely. No.
That's fine if you're not getting a train of thought. It's all good. It's all good, David. So talk me through those 2 essays that you did, one in Coatbridge, and I think the one that you're about to go through is a similar area. So as a traditional buy-to-let, what would those go for? What would those be?
So the one in Coatbridge actually was my old house, but yeah, it would rent out probably at £900 a month. It's a 3-bed end terraced house, and over the summer months, we had 4 months in summer of 100% occupancy, and it was generating £4,500 a month. We'd done some upgrades in April. It's got it's a really nice house for actually where it is in Coatbridge. People think, why the hell have you got that there? But it is really nice, and it looks out onto the campsies. It's got a big back garden. I've got Highland cows actually in the field behind me, which actually last week managed to break my fence down and come into my garden. So they're not so nice now. So that one performed phenomenal through summer because we put a barbecue out there, we put fire pit, we'd done all this, and it was just booked out the whole time, at £4,500 a month, which on a property we'd normally get £900 rental on, and which is just phenomenal. So, and
what's the rough value of this property?
So this one is the current market value of it is £150,000.
So to put things into perspective, you've got £150,000 value in a property that's netting like £2,000 on average a month, because you're again using even if you weren't managing it yourself, you're still over £1,000 net, which is insane.
Absolutely,
which is insane. It's like triple the net income that you would get, maybe triple or quadruple that you'd get for a traditional buy-to-let. And this is another reason why I love this strategy, because just one essay, and your example in Coatbridge, 150 grand could literally set you on a whole new pathway in terms of bringing in extra income, becoming a lot more financially independent, especially with everything that's going on in the world over the last year or so. People need to be more proactive in their pursuit of bringing in extra income. And of course, buy-to-let still have their place and still have, still a great strategy for the right properties. But where you can have SAs, it just lifts your game and your income to a whole different level. So assisted sales, you've got a couple of those at the moment. You're looking at the bigger projects as well, which are exciting. Do you know rough numbers in terms of what you're expecting on those ones? The one you're talking about converting into 6 apartments?
So basically that one, we're going to go through multiple probably stages of values there. Initially, once the project's complete, it will, you know, the GDV essentially of it as a bricks and mortar is 425,000. But as you know, when we go down the line and start generating income, we've got the ability there to refinance onto a commercial product, which will probably bring the value to 550, probably near 600,000. But that one alone, I work everything on my big spreadsheet, big engineering spreadsheet, very, very conservatively, will generate £141,000 gross income, and you know, with all costs deducted there, and being conservative again, it's going to have a net income of £40,000 a year, which is basically not far off the net income that you would probably generate as an engineer from one deal.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Which is just freaking insane.
Yeah.
When you put things into perspective, you know?
Yeah.
And this is what I love. I love how what you've been able to do in only a few short years, from getting yourself started in your property journey, really treating it like a business, really utilising this whole network that you've got within the property community, asking the questions, applying things, and then getting the results.
Yeah.
So walk me through because you're only 3 years, just over 3 years in your property journey, right? What's your kind of plans going forward? Is Australia still on the card? I know you love your extreme sports. Maybe talk about that as well, because one of the things that you do is just so fascinating. I love watching the videos, and you've taken a group of the Platinum members along there as well before. Yeah. So what's David's goal going forward? What's the bigger picture?
Yeah, so definitely travelling, and Australia's definitely on the cards. So by the end of this year, me and Samantha kind of want to be in a position where we can maybe go away for, you know, I'm not saying take a month off, I'm saying go away for a month, work from overseas, and have that ability to work remotely. So we could maybe, and this is one of the reasons why we want multiple service accommodations, because we're probably not going to have a home here. As a plan, we're not going to have any actual home that we own for quite some time, and then we're going to just come back and maybe stay in one for a month, maybe stay in, you know, some of these apart hotels that we're planning on hopefully having, and basically, and just dot about for a while, coming back for a month, going away maybe overseas to travel the world, Asia, you know, anywhere, South America, and just exploring a bit before we properly settle down. And that's a big goal of ours. You know, towards the end of the year, we envision being able to do that and getting the businesses to the point that we can. Obviously, we still need to come back here to look at opportunity and deals. But that's a big goal of ours, and probably moving abroad and living abroad at some point as well. Because, as you mentioned, I love water skiing, I love wakeboarding, and more specifically barefoot water skiing, which people don't even realise exists, which is barefooting, water skiing on your bare feet in the region of 40 miles per hour, which is kind of a very niche thing, and I think I'm the only one in Loch Lomond that does it. The only one mad enough, the only one willing to deal with the cold, you know. So just going and getting a home somewhere that's like on a lake where, you know, I could kind of do this year round. It's like almost a 6-month thing if you're lucky here in Scotland. So being somewhere that we could do that all year round, and bring up my family, you know, to be involved in that kind of sports as well, and have that luxury of maybe having a jetty in my back garden with a boat sitting there, you know, instead of having to go up to cold Loch Lomond. Although I do love Loch Lomond, it is beautiful.
Absolutely. I've no doubt in my mind that you'll make this happen, because what you've done in a few short years is astounding, and it's only going to get bigger and better for sure, you know. One of the questions I like to always ask before we wrap things up is that, knowing what you know now, and having someone that's thinking about getting started in their property journey, might have the similar apprehensions or whatever that may be, especially with things that goes on in the market, because a lot of people influence with what's going on around them, rather than looking at facts and understanding, well, I just want to make more money. Property is a safe investment. If I understand and know how to do it, then take those steps. What would you say to someone who's maybe getting started on their journey, knowing what you've gone through? Some of David's top tips to what to avoid or what to focus on and what to do.
Yeah, I mean, some of the biggest learnings are from obviously my mistakes, and one of the big ones being, you know, getting shiny object syndrome and chasing something chasing the pennies instead of the big money, and it's easy to get distracted. You know, you end up freeing up more time as you maybe move away from full-time employment, and you think, oh, this sounds like a good idea, and getting really distracted when essentially that you should be you're still really at the early stages of mastering your first business and your first kind of steps, your entrepreneurial journey. And yeah, I think just you need to just stick at one thing and really niche down and concentrate on it, and not try and just spread yourself too thin trying to do this, that, and the next thing, or anything that comes along past you. And just be constantly working on yourself, you know, working on your mindset. Keeping yourself fit and healthy as well is a huge part of it. And yeah, you know, working on the mindset, you know, when it comes to property, you know, is probably the biggest part of it all. To be able to deal with the challenges that come along, from houses flooding to, you know, dealing with sellers that are in difficult situations when maybe, you know, you've promised them a completion date and it doesn't happen, or something along that lines. And you know, these could be very stressful situations for the seller, which obviously reflects onto you. And you know, you need to be able to manage that and still keep a level playing field.
Yeah. No, it's great that you've brought that up, because mindset is just paramount, isn't it? It's good that you've seen that, and it's something that you're recommending as well, because once we work on up here, especially in the game of building a business and investment, then it's really going to set you up, that's for sure. So first and foremost, this has been a great podcast. It's been amazing to listen to hear about your journey. I know it's going to inspire so many people, that's for sure. But tell us how people could reach out to you and connect with you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, the best way for people to reach out to me is just to follow me on Instagram, or LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active. It's David Liddell, or on Instagram it's David Liddell Property, and you'll easily find me. Yeah.
Good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link off to all David's social handles as well, so you can, I guess, connect with him, which you should, absolutely. And I know he's always open to do more joint ventures and to partner with more people. But with that said as well, if you've got any questions or any comments, pop them below, and I'm sure David will go on there and check those out to respond. And likewise, I'm going to be on there too, responding. So I know you're going to be inspired by this, and I look forward to seeing what our next guest is going to be, because I like to have these conversations to help you guys on your own journey too. So all the best, and bye for now.